Hi, welcome into the Irish NFL show, Week 17, Monday Night Football. Colin Chargers Cronin, Brian Blowout O'Leary, Mark I Love Tom Brady Cockerell, and Michael the Cowboys are still winning the Super Bowl McQuaid. How we doing, boys? Good?
Good, yeah. What an evening of football yesterday. There's I think plenty for us to discuss on tonight's show.
I think it's probably one of the most entertaining shows ahead with the amount of stuff we've got to get through with the amount of games, and great to see Michael finally putting that jinx on the Cowboys. That should see them through to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, not to jump ahead of Mark, but we've got the Irish Titans laughing already in the chat. The Irish Bengals are all on. Just everyone's watching, so we will get to your team, I promise. And Mark, a warm welcome in as well. A good day yesterday for both your teams.
My only team is the Patriots, Michael. But yes, Tampa Bay and Tom Brady did have a comeback special. But yeah, there's a good few people that deserve due credit and due compensation and condolences, kind of begging on all fours to forgive us in relation to it. Some amazing performances. It was just a great day in the NFL. And like in a selfish way, most of the great games were the early games as well. So we got to enjoy it a little bit more instead of fighting with tiredness towards the end of the evening. So just amazing stuff. Like some of the performances, and I know we'll get to them all. Jamar Chase, the Titans actually absolutely steamrolling the Dolphins. There is, as Brian said, a lot to talk about and a lot to give due credit to.
2 hours, 36 minutes on Saturday night show. So excited to say how long ago tonight. Stephen saying, who day? If you want to get a message on the screen, you need to comment tonight on YouTube and Facebook. Unfortunately, I don't own Twitter and they don't integrate it, and I'll try and call it out. But the Irish Titans said, hey. And Irish Bengals said, tell them forget about tonight's game. We only want to hear about divisional. That's for the Titans as well. We'll talk about the Titans. If you haven't heard, there's obviously games this weekend that have been rescheduled. For some reason, the Cowboys and the Eagles are playing late on Saturday night. Chiefs Broncos early on Saturday. It's about 9:30 our time. And Sunday Night Football is the Chargers and Raiders. We'll talk about that more at the end of the show. Irish NFL show presented by Matchbook Trust. And we'll have more of that during the show as well. Can't wait to hear how our bet got on yesterday. Let's start off. Colin, the Bengals are kicking off the show. Have I got that correct? Yeah, the Bengals.
Yeah,
win the AFC North yesterday. Incredible performance from Chase and Burrow.
Yeah, deservedly so. I mean, what a turnaround in a year from worst to first, bottom of the AFC North last year, top this year, and all down to their QB and those receivers. The first half yesterday, I mean, their offense was fire from the beginning, but their defense could not seem to get a stop on Kansas City. They overcame a 14-point deficit, and to me, I suppose Kansas got too caught up, I think, in playing the man rather than the ball. They just seemed to their I suppose defense made it easy for the refs. Yeah, they got some nice calls, but you're going to get those at home. That's why everyone wants to play at home in the playoffs. That's why everyone goes for it. There is no grand conspiracy. I have seen things today that the NFL wanted it to make this a point and all this. There's no grand conspiracy. Homers get home decisions. Big names get big decisions. Chiefs fans, there are plenty of fans around the rest of the league who feel that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs get decisions at times. Dirty Dan Sorensen last year, for example. But look, kudos to the Bengals. You would have to say when they needed to do it, they showed up. And Burrow was absolutely brilliant. Burrow threw for 446 yards. A stat I saw was the Saints and the Panthers combined for 456 yards. He has been immense, obviously, over the past two games. And remember, this is only his second year. He missed a lot of his first because of the ACL injury. We hear a lot that, like, players, I think, need 3, maybe even 4 years to get used to the league, especially at QB, apparently. Although Patrick Mahomes was MVP in his first year as starter, Lamar Jackson is second, Joe Burrow now continuing that trend of second-year QBs being absolutely brilliant. Kudos to the Bengals, absolutely deserved it.
Yeah, I was very high on the Chiefs for this game, as I called out on the show on Saturday night, and for large parts it looked that way. 14 points, they were up. They scored 28 points in the first half. I was surprised at half time that they didn't look to double team Chase, because you take Chase out of the game, and what did the Bengals have left? Because it was literally throw the ball up. I think it was a 3rd and 27 in the second half where they threw it up. Chase took it down. Colin, you referred to the penalties the Chiefs are giving out about. There was 10 penalties, they were precise, but they did get a letter of apology from the league today, but it wasn't for one of the penalties. It was actually for the penalty that they didn't get called, which was on the 4th and 1 play at the end of the game, where there was a clear false start and the Chiefs were crying out for it, and it wasn't called. The league apologised today. Makes no sense really. Apologising thereafter. It's done. Andy Reid's comments after the game were hilarious. I'm not going to comment on every single one of them because I won't have any wages left this week when the league come calling. Look, I didn't think that the Bengals were up for winning it. I called out that they hadn't beaten any teams I felt that would go to the playoffs, but I was wrong, and that's the beauty of this show. We've all been wrong at times, and for a Bengals fan, you have to be absolutely over the moon to go from, as Colin has touched on, to be last to winning the division. And I mean, Burrow doesn't get mentioned for MVP. It really doesn't. And should he be up there? And the only thing what concerns me in the long run is the O-line, because even on that play at the end, which was called for the penalty, he had to come out of the game. I mean, the O-line is probably their weakest point in the game. And for the Chiefs, losing the left tackle and then losing the second left tackle in the game, I think inevitably that's what caught up with them in the second half, because they never got going at all in the second half. They only scored 3 points.
Guys, I just want to say this was a fantastic game of football. Like, I mean, that's where we have to start. This was just a fantastic, rip-roaring, offensive dominated, then defenses come back into the game, just enjoyable game of football. I mean, you consider the Chiefs were up 28-17, I think it was, at halftime, 11-point lead at halftime. And the cynic in you was going, the Bengals are giving it a good go, but yeah, they just don't have enough. The Chiefs are going to stay ahead now. They're not going to let that throw away. They scored 3 points in the second half. Yes, it was the Burrow and Chase show, but my God, their defense stood up as well. And look, I have not been as high on the Bengals through this season. I think they've blown hot and cold at times. I've been worried about their wide receiver depth because, yes, you've got Jamar Chase. Yes, you've got T. Higgins, who is not Megatron, guys. I'm sorry, Tyler Boyd's saying it. And you've got Tyler Boyd, and you've got very little behind that. And yesterday, if you told me Mixon's going to run for about 3-yard average, I think they had 19 attempts, 60 yards in total rushing the ball, I would have said, well, they're not going to win the game. They're not controlling it on the ground. They're not making holes on the ground. How are they going to do anything? I have not probably watched every single pass that Joe Burrow has thrown and Jamar Chase has caught, but I guarantee you for the rest of their careers, I will not miss a single pass. That yesterday, and I don't say this lightly, that was as close to Randy Moss in his rookie season as I've ever seen in the National Football League. And that to me is the high point. There's no telling. That is the absolute high point. It was stupendous. Colin, you allude to the 3rd and 27 conversion. Burrow put it up there just in the right place. Chase somehow comes down with it. The long touchdowns. It was immaculate. Bless me, Father, for I've sinned. It's been several months since my last confession. I have not worshipped at the altar of Jamar Chase enough. I did call him out early in the season that he deserves the Offensive Rookie of the Year over Mac Jones, which you'd appreciate is a tough one for me to say. But after that performance, you have to give it to him. You just have to give it to him. It was brilliant. Fair play to the Bengals. Congratulations on the AFC North, and enjoy it, guys.
As Colin mentioned, 446 yards, 4 touchdowns for Joe Burrow, quarterback from LSU, second year after an injury last year. I just want to, I'm just proud of all of us lads collectively together picking the Bengals over the Chiefs. It was a gutsy thing to do, but it was one of those things. Look, I personally last night I seen certain people people we've had on this show, people on Twitter this morning, and I'm not going to waste time in it, calling out the refs last night. Now, there's literally an encyclopedia for what the Chiefs have, encountered over the last few years. They've been fantastic. This is probably the best thing that could have happened for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win on Sunday or Saturday against the Broncos. Win comfortably. Cover. I mean, the only thing that you could say is they're not going to have a week off. Whatever. It's fine. This is probably the best thing that could happen for them. They're going to go into the playoffs now rolling with anger. Seeing like Honey Badger's tweets last night, but looking at Joe Burrow in terms of the NFL, 4th in passing yards, 5th passing touchdowns, 5th in passing yards. Ja'Marr Chase 2nd in receiving touchdowns, 4th in receiving yards, most rookie receiving yards in NFL history. Couple of things before I shut up. First off was Ja'Marr Chase had more yards than Mahomes yesterday. And I want to look at the Bengals overall. The Bengals in 2016 were 3rd in the AFC North, 6-9-1. 2017, 7-9, years and years going forward, 2-14 in 2019, 4-11 and 10-6 this year. They are an example to the rest of the league, showing that when you're down, you're not out of it, and you can come back. And the way that they have come back is to be admired of, and I envy them for it. But there is no other fan base in the NFL that deserves probably more so than the Bengals at the minute. They've had years of this, and I wish them the very, very best of luck in the playoffs, because Joe Burrow looks like a complete stud.
Michael, I will say this, and this is the only one piece of caution, and I'm sure there are Bengals fans around the world that are remembering this as well. I know you won't, but Colin and Brian, do you remember Ness and Dormer, guys?
Enlighten me, Mark. Go on.
Well, Ness and Dormer was more the theme tune to the BBC coverage of Italia 90, but
I remember
it was
that, yeah.
the ubiquitous song. 1990 was the last time the Bengals have won a playoff game. So that's another reason why, you've got to enjoy it now. You've got to enjoy winning the FC North, but they now have to get out and they have to win the playoff games, and they have to make it more meaningful beyond that.
But just taking you back a little bit further, the records they broke this season haven't been touched since 1988 when they went to the Super Bowl with Boomer Esiason. That's how far we're going back to the level of offensive play we're seeing from this team this season.
Yeah. And in another great one from Peter King this morning, Michael, just to close it out. In a 2-game stretch, Joe Burrow has thrown for 971 yards. The most Dan Marino achieved in his entire career in a 2-game stretch was something like 870, 880. I know the game has changed and evolved, but it's still a pretty cool stat.
Thank you for all the comments. Thanks, Fred, as well for your comments. We'll try and get on the screen when we can. We've got to try and get through some of these games here. Titans, another team which we all picked at the weekend. I'm going to shut up because I picked the Cowboys, and I said that the Cardinals wouldn't have a chance. So I've not on this. I actually had a really good day until that happened. So thank you, Dallas. Titans look really good yesterday, beating the Miami 34-3, taking the AFC South. Colin, what's your thoughts? Because for me, I think this time in the form at the right time. And quite frankly, Vrabel's proven a lot of people wrong across the league.
Well, we talked about Vrabel, in fairness, on Saturday's show, and how much I've enjoyed watching him in the playoffs and what he did to Belichick. So this isn't a surprise in ways. What was a surprise was that, this wasn't even a game, because a game requires 2 teams. The Dolphins just were not at the races, in that the Titans didn't allow them to be. The Titans were brilliant on both sides of the ball. And what was fascinating to me watching it was to see Flores he got frustrated early, and he was frustrated often. Every time the camera went to the sidelines, he seemed to be arguing with some of the coaching staff. He was annoyed. Nothing seemed to go their way, and that's because the Titans didn't allow it. We talked about Tannehill's issue with being under pressure this year, and he was blitzed almost 70% of his dropbacks, but he managed to complete 7 of 12, and one of the touchdowns came off of the blitzes. So the Titans dealt with what the Dolphins threw at them, and they absolutely shut down that Dolphins offense. So Mark talked about it on Saturday, about Tua and the questions, and that'll be absolutely there for the Dolphins in the off season, I imagine, because if you can get shut down to that extent, and obviously the throwing the pass without the ball in his hand is the one that probably stands out. But for the Titans, back-to-back division titles. First time a stat was since 60 to 62, the Houston Oilers, they won three straight AFL East titles way back when. So yeah, the Titans, obviously, Henry, it seems, will be back for the playoffs, and what an addition to have to complement that team.
Yeah, Tua really struggled in the adverse weather conditions. I mean, he turned the ball over 3 times. He was sacked 4 times, and there was no deep ball essentially yesterday. And we've, even during the season, Mark's called it out when we were in London. His deep balls at the best times are a bit, 50-50 at times. He throws them into double coverage, and sometimes they come off, sometimes they don't. Yesterday it was all short pass, which played into the Titans' hand defensively. There was nothing down the field. Tannehill only threw for 120 yards. He walks out of a game only throwing for 120 yards. They ran the ball 40 times. They didn't have to do anything explosive on offense. The game was there for them. Defense took care of business. And from the Dolphins' point of view, our defense the score is very comprehensive. Going into it, if you were told you'd keep Tannehill to 120 yards, you probably felt you had a really good chance, but you're expecting your offense to do a lot. I mean, some of the throws yesterday by Tua, don't know if you recall the one in particular where he threw it, like it was like a 5-yard throw to Waddle, and he literally fired it into him. See Waddle look at him, it's like, what are you doing? So struggles were there yesterday. Read a report today, and some people are kind of backing up that they felt that this Dolphins team, once they went on a run, if you look at who they played, with the exception maybe of that Ravens game on the Thursday night, they hadn't really beaten anybody of note. And that was the reason why they got their season back on track. And when it came to playing one of the stronger sides, they wouldn't be up for it. And it proved to be the case. So they'll go back, and that's 2 years in a row where they've been reasonably close, but 2 very different seasons. 10-6 last year, and the struggles this year, and then thought they had it back, but not good enough in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the weekend on Saturday, we all felt, okay, they've been on a bit of a run. They've got the momentum going the right way. Tennessee had been fighting through a bit of a rough patch, let's be fair about it. With losing Henry, not looking as consistent offense, albeit obviously a great performance against the 49ers with an amazing performance by A.J. Brown. And it's definitely fair to say their passing offense isn't as explosive as it was, but it hasn't needed to be. Like, the reality is, if they're going to continue to run the ball that efficiently, even without Derrick Henry, and yes, Dante Foreman has peeled off a couple of 100-yard games in Henry's absence, but it was like taking candy from a baby at times against that Miami defense, which is exactly the opposite of what we've seen from Miami defense, at least. I mean, they failed on both sides of the ball, to be fair. And on the other side of the ball, whilst I think in fairness, Titans fans, you've got to give us credit for this. We did call out the impressive nature of their front four. We did call out Harold Landry, the fact they could run riot with that Miami offensive line. But I didn't see the level of domination that they displayed. I mean, anytime you hold an NFL team to 3 points is a special occasion. And they did it without breaking sweat. And look at all the goodies that then befall them. It's not just the AFC South title, but with the Bengals beating the Chiefs, of course, it's into that number 1 seed, which is very nice. Thank you very much. Especially for such a physically dominant side who rely so much, if you like, on the run game. Getting an extra week to rest up is like manna from heaven. And if it's an extra week whereby Derrick Henry can return for the divisional round and he's back and flying, it would be absolutely awesome, wouldn't it? So things are falling into play. Again, beware the Ides of March in many respects. I think, if I'm correct in saying, the last time I remember Tennessee had a number 1 seed, they were 13-3 for the season with a dominant running offense. I think Chris Johnson, Lendale White kind of era, and they promptly got bounced in their first game. Might have even been 14-2 that season. So great to get the number 1 seed, great to get the bye. Obviously, they have to do the business next week. Who are they playing? Oh, the Texans. Yeah, they'll do the business next week. But enjoy it, but do the business in January and February. That's when it really, really counts. But definitely have to enjoy it. Great performance.
There's a comment there saying Dolphins again, blowing it. The O-line is a joke. I actually, I'm not going to say who it was with, but we all know who he is. I honestly, boys, I genuinely thought some people would go with the Dolphins. Go with the Titans, because I thought they were going to come back into it a bit. The Dolphins, for me, that was a bye week against the Saints. But more importantly, for me, is Vrabel a Coach of the Year candidate? 89, the magic number, 89. Now, we're not talking about Arsenal, Mark. 89 players have donned a Tennessee uniform this season. If it's so many injuries, AJ Brown, Julio Jones, and look where they are now going into week 18. Honestly, they understand what the difference Vrabel makes in this team. And the one thing that I can really touch on, because you really touched on it, everything else, the combination of Foreman and Hillard, if granted Hillard only had like 10 yards in the game, but they got the scores. The run game's getting there after the start of the year where they had the difficulties. And I'm excited to see what happens now, because once Derrick Henry went down, we thought, oh, Jesus, here we go. And apparently now he's coming back. So it's time. It's Tennessee's time, Brian.
Yeah, I was looking at these playoff machines today, and there was a few permutations around who they could potentially play in the second round of the playoffs, assuming they win next weekend and gets the number 1 seed. A vast majority have them coming up against the Colts. And it's just strange. We've seen this so many times in the past where a team plays against a divisional rival twice in a season, beat them twice, close games, come playoff time. We saw it last year with the Bucs going in and beating the Saints, having lost both games in the regular season. We've seen it time and time again. And I don't think they'll be wanting to see the Colts again. I think the Colts match up reasonably well against them. I think that could be a great game. Great game for us as neutrals to watch during the playoffs. But I think Titans fans will be eagerly waiting to see who they potentially will have in that divisional round game, assuming they take care of business on Sunday.
I assume they'll be gunning for the Bills, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be the trilogy with the Bills? Isn't it? Or they went on that run. They knocked the Bills out. They lost to them last year. I remember. Oh no, the Ravens. Sorry, the Ravens and the Titans have that particular love interest together. Well, they don't have to worry about them this season.
A few weeks before we see all that, anyway.
Lovely. The Raiders won in Indianapolis yesterday. Fantastic game for a neutral. Really enjoyed it, Colin, and they were the first team to let me down. I was going into the 9 o'clock games going, oh my God, if I only got the Raiders game wrong today, I'm really happy. And then the Cowboys, obviously, which we'll talk about in a bit. Winning 23-20, they moved to 9-7, Colin, and now face the Chargers on Sunday Night Football, game 200 and I want to say 72, the last game of the season on regular, the last game of the regular season, and they have a chance to go into the playoffs.
Yeah, that'll be a really interesting game against the Chargers. But in fairness to them, they did a number on the Colts yesterday. The Colts had 53 yards of total offense on their first 4 drives. And Carson Wentz completed 1 of his first 5 passing attempts. It was the return of bad Carson Wentz. And he was just looking to the sidelines at times like a lost puppy, hoping that Frank Reich was going to give him some, I suppose, unearned, undeserved praise. But Frank Reich tends to be very positive, but even he couldn't get Wentz really going yesterday. Jonathan Taylor got a touchdown, but never really looked like himself. And I have been very critical of Derek Carr on this show. I'm really interested to see what will happen next Sunday night. But credit where it's due. He came up big when required. Hunter Renfrow helped him out, obviously, with the catch and the run afterwards. But Carr eluded the pressure, made the throw, and the Raiders, who have been dealing with all sorts of issues this year, and those continue with another arrest earlier this morning for a DUI. But they're there. They're still there with an interim head coach, and there are plenty of teams around the league who have much more established setups who would love to be in the position that the Raiders find themselves in, still vying for a playoff spot.
I don't think we were all comfortable when we picked the Colts. I know the Colts have been quite good of late, but I don't think we were all very comfortable when we picked them because of the Wentz situation. I think that was kind of one of the main reasons in the end why I went with him, because he was coming back, but I probably didn't pick up on the fact that he hadn't participated in any of the sessions all week. Everything he would have been doing would have been remotely, and we've seen in the past during the season where that's kind of impacted the team. Whilst the player might be fit really because the COVID hasn't impacted him, it's the fact that he's not around the team, preparing for such a big game. Yeah, Michael, I think maybe yourself and Mark, I can't recall who said it on Saturday night, we'll know after the fourth quarter if the Raiders are here to play. And if the Madden situation had taken any significance, I felt it did. You see a team are well up for it. And the last few weeks, we've been pleasantly surprised by how well they've done on the run game, and we thought that might be a big two of a step in terms of dealing with Taylor, but they did for large parts. Taylor got going in the second half, but really at that stage, you could see that it was going to come down to a one-score game. And Yeah, Derek Carr threw 2 interceptions, but he picked himself up and rallied with that great throw at the end. And for the Raiders, like we're touching on those off fields, like let's call them out. Gruden, Ruggs, the first round pick gets dropped, and then obviously this situation the weekend, and they keep coming back from it. So on Saturday, I actually said the game was in LA this weekend. I actually recall the first game was in LA. It was just there was so many Raiders fans at it. I assumed it was a home game. This game is going to be in Vegas this weekend. They might have the DJ out before the game. So it's one not to be missed.
Yeah, it was me on Saturday, Brian, that said, look, let's see after the first quarter. I mean, this team has gone through so much emotional strife this whole season. And trust me, at the end of the first quarter, or even halfway through it, I was already saying, strapping your seatbelts, ladies, because we knew we had a game in our hands. It's remarkable for me how far a team can go relying on one player. I mean, Jonathan Taylor ran for over 100 yards for a 5.4 yard per carry average. And it's almost like a letdown because he's relied upon so much by that Indy team. And that just goes to the heart, again, of the absence of capability, really, from Carson Wentz. You know, Derek Carr I wouldn't say do anything spectacular. He put the ball in the right place several times, allowed people to make the run after the catch in terms of getting the yak, whether it was Renfro, whether it was Zay Jones, who had a bit of a day himself, over 100 yards. But he didn't make any mistakes. Well, he made a couple, but he didn't make any major mistakes that hurt them. He managed the game well. He made the right throws at the right time. And again, we're talking about this weekend was exciting in terms of some of the matchups. This was a tight, close game. Both teams are fighting for the same thing. And it sets up the most obvious but the best Sunday night football game for next week, which is obviously a classic, win and you're in. Both teams are something to play for. The Raiders and the Chargers, who have both gone through their up and downs this season. I didn't back the Raiders this week, but there's been a couple of times this season I've gone for the Raiders or the Chargers, believing more in them than maybe others on this show at times. And this week, one of them will make it and the other won't. It's like, I know, think of your favorite quiz show, but like there's like a pool of sharks hanging underneath ready to eat the loser. Because if they win and they get in the playoffs, oh, it's all good. Yeah, everything's bright and shiny, and we'll just fix this coaching thing in the offseason. It's great. If they don't, Derek Carr's useless. Everyone's useless. Get rid of them all again. So fortunes will change dramatically in Week 17. Great game, great win by the Raiders. And yes, maybe Indy did flatter to deceive, but that's because of the tangled web they weaved in the first instance.
Sorry, Michael, quick one. It's always great to see the entertainment on social and Twitter in particular around fans of particular fan base. And Steve O'Rourke, who we've had on the show previously, who's a big Raiders fan, to see his tweets during the game, because the lies and the ups and downs of that game. And when T.Y. Hilton caught that touchdown off that kind of bizarre play where it went down the field and looked like initially it was going to be intercepted, I'd imagine he was thinking, oh, here we go again. It's not going to be our day, but they got over the line. I'm really looking forward to that game next Sunday. It's going to be a cracker.
Yeah, I'd say I was very surprised by the late game choosing on Saturday. I thought maybe ESPN might have put that on, but I can see why NBC flexed it into that there. That T.Y. Hilton touchdown was great crack. Me and Brian had a wee chat about T.Y. Hilton before the game yesterday. I laughed whenever that happened, but great to see him get a score. And at the end of the day, if Carson Wentz is going to have 148 yards and 1 touchdown, and you're relying on Taylor that much where he's the main part of the team, it's not going to happen for them. And T.Y. Hilton was Pittman didn't get anything. He had 7.8 yards average yesterday, but he didn't get any scores. And the reality is the Colts looked like world beaters against the Patriots 2 weeks ago. Was that 2 weeks ago? And look, the Raiders got it done. And yes, it's in Vegas. Chris Harris Jr. was giving it massive, getting everyone to Vegas next week. I'm really excited for that game because it's 2 AFC West teams that want to win, and there's so many permutations for what's going to happen there. I mean, if the Raiders mess up next week, you're right. Where does Derek Carr go? New York?
No. The problem with the Saturday night situation was with the league, it became messy for them because I believe that ESPN were really pushing for a really big game, and the game which they called out as the one they actually initially requested was San Francisco against the Rams, because the 49ers are going for the playoffs and the Rams need to win the division. The problem there is they wanted to have equal balance because the Saints result impacts the 49ers result in terms of which one makes the playoffs. So if that game was played Saturday night, okay, it could work in the Saints' favor. They know come Sunday they win, but the league wanted to make sure both games were being played at the end. So in the end, the league had very little they could do except give that Chargers game potentially on Saturday, and NBC weren't having any of that. So they were left with, let's be fair, a game that really has very little at this stage because of the Cowboys' loss. There's really very little left on it.
Cowboys, money, people watching. I guess that's the main thing, and I'm excited that my team is on and my team finishes a day early. Talk about that in a bit. Okay, Cowboys. Cowboys fall to the Cardinals 25. It's written down here, 25-22. Anton, have I pronounced the name right? Anton Wesley scores two touchdowns for Arizona. Cowboys fall to 11-5. I think they're going as far as the 4th seed now. It looks as if they could face Green Bay in Lambeau with the coach, with the whole oh my god, what a game. Arizona moves to 11-5, and Arizona shut me right up. They were fantastic yesterday. And calling the Cowboys again at home don't get it done. You had a game against the Raiders at Thanksgiving. The Broncos completely killed them. And then last night as well, just far too many mistakes. I don't know what's going on with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, we had thought that maybe they had sorted things out against the Washington football team the previous week. Not to be. And we talked about how impressive they had been at home in Jerry's world. But we hadn't considered the fact that Texas native Kyler Murray doesn't lose in Jerry's world. Won on all of his 8 trips there now. 9 if you include when he backed up, but he just does. Kyler goes into Jerry's world and he wins. Aided massively by Chandler Jones, you would have to say, who lived in the Dallas backfield and just gave them all sorts of problems all night. And for the Cowboys, it was the fact that they got nothing going. Dak made some really nice throws, but he obviously had at other times missed some, overthrew guys, missed guys, had the fumble. And they couldn't get the run game going at all in that first half, given what the Cards were dealing with. I'm missing all the stuff that's got on the bottom of the screen, clearly.
Great crack. It's great crack.
Evidently. But the Cards under Cliff got the big win when they needed to. Best performance in a month by a country mile. And they're still in, obviously, with a shout of the division. But we'll talk about the Rams in a little bit. But yeah, Cards, kudos to them for the upset win.
There were 17 flags in this game, 10 of which I believe are on the Cowboys. And after the game, the Cowboys press conference, I don't know if you've taken some time to read up on it. It was the blame game. There was a lot of deflection away from a very poor performance because they were blaming the refs, and they might have had a point on that one at the end, which would look like a fumble, but they used the timeouts at that stage. Look, Collins touched on the Cowboys never got going yesterday. Thought Murray was quite impressive, over 300 yards, but he didn't run for a lot. It was 44 yards off 9 plays, so it probably doesn't look like a lot, but I felt he had that back. He had that kind of option there yesterday, and it kind of had the Cowboys a little bit off kilter because they didn't know whether he was going to run or whether they were going to throw. And we hadn't seen that over the past few weeks from him, which kind of was a big factor in how they played so well during the season. So if they get that back now, and the way it's playing out now, it looks like it's going to be a rerun in the wild card. And, who's to say the Cardinals won't go in and beat them again? They'll be very confident, haven't done it this time. And Murray has a great run in Texas. So it makes for a great game in a few weeks. But the Cowboys, I wouldn't look, they haven't choked. The division's won, but they've had a real chance there to get the 2nd seed, and they drop back to 4. It's significant for me because they're going to have to go on the road straight away in the division round in all likelihood. So big loss for them. Great win for the Cards at this stage of the season to get back to what they were doing earlier in the season because they look like a really confident team yesterday.
Yeah, Colin mentioned we did say on Saturday night Kyler Murray was 7-0 at AT&T Stadium. He's now 8-0. So yes, he doesn't lose there, whether it's high school, state championships, college games, or indeed NFL games. He seems to do it all. But what happened to the Cowboys offense? I mean, I feel like it wasn't just the Michael curse, maybe it was the Irish NFL show curse, because we were lauding the performance of the offensive line, the Kellen Moore's offensive calling in relation to it, the fact that they've been clicking so well on offense, and that it's they've been so consistent during the year generally. And what do? They put up 7 points in the first 3 quarters. 7 points. They were,
Snap to Prescott, inside fake,
you
rolls
know,
left and keeps looking, nobody open, throws it in the end zone, touchdown.
that's about all they did. They finally threw for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. That's when they're trying to get excited about. They threw
Property
for
belongs to
7
Fox. Fox Sports NFL partners. The Irish NFL shows no affiliation with the National Football League or Westwood One Sports.
It's okay. It's okay, Michael. Don't worry about that. It's under 6 seconds. It'll be fine. Fair usage defense. In any event, that was the bit that surprised me. Yes, I mean, the Cards defense came to play, and they've maybe not performed the last while. Chandler Jones is a great pass rusher, but he has been absent without leave for a while. He certainly wasn't last night. And the Dallas defensive line that we're giving a lot of credit to didn't get consistent pressure on Arizona early, which allowed them to get the points on the board, get a bit of a lead, and then hang on, obviously, in the end. I mean, I don't want to dwell on the rest. It was a cow, we were talking about the big teams getting the calls, the home teams getting the calls. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work like that as well. The refs didn't decide this game. Arizona deserved to win it. Yeah. Dallas laid a duck egg or a goose egg at just the wrong time. And them's the breaks, guys. They're still going to the playoffs. Maybe not as nice in playoff seeding. Fair play to the Cards. Fair play to them getting their season back on track again. And yeah, Brian says, a nice rematch for the playoffs would be a lot of fun.
I just want to make a quick one. Cowboys fans, and I'm not critical. People say, you're only criticizing because they're in your division. I mean, they're blown up on Dak last night. Social, people contacting the show. Dak, contract, all this stuff is coming back up. I mean, that hasn't been mentioned all season when he's had a great year. I think it's very unfair to be criticizing him. Yeah, he didn't have a good game yesterday. He had a great game last week. Albeit against a Washington defense that struggled. And he probably in all likelihood will play really well come playoff time. So there's a lot of teams in the league who haven't got a quarterback, including my own, in my opinion. And, the guys at the top end, but, I think we'd all jump on Dak if we can. So I think it's unfair for Cowboys fans to be jumping on him and saying, will he be really the man that can win a playoff game for us?
I mean, can I add on to that, Brian? Because I was going to say, I mean, it's a bit unfair. It really is unfair to do that. I mean, last night he was a good Daniel Jones still, and they're getting on him. So, that's not really appropriate.
Haven't seen Daniel Jones. He's missing an action quite a while now. Sorry, Michael.
No, it's all good. I have a few things to say here. First off, obviously, picking the Cowboys, I genuinely thought they would win the game. Cardinals proved me wrong, and if they play like that the rest of the season, they've got a very, very good chance of getting very, very far down the stretch. Let's see if they do. Green Bay last night playing Minnesota. Everyone was saying at the end on Twitter at 5:05 a.m. whenever the NFL decided to release the Week 18 slate flex schedule about the Green Bay Packers have no excuses. Well, Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, Schultz, Lamb, Pollard, Gallup, Wilson, Cooper, Elliott, without even going into the defense. This team has no excuses, whether it's the last seed or the first seed. With the talent on paper with this Cowboys team, they have no excuses. And I pray, as a fan of the NFL, that the Packers do play the Cowboys, because I think it's going to be a great game. But they let themselves down last night, big time. And let's see how they get on with it. And they're going to have to go in now. Let's see what happens Week 18. But who have you got Week 18?
Who, the Packers?
No, the Cowboys.
Cowboys are playing the Eagles on Saturday night. So it's a
Saturday night.
Lovely game. That game, yes, on Saturday night. That was a good advertising ploy. 10 p.m. on Friday, we got a special. And very quickly, I know some people have some points to make. There's been loads of comments here. And thank you, everyone, for your comments. It's been a very, very rough day, 5 a.m. There's a lot of talk about Dak here, boys. Fred flung to his Twitter last night as well. Said it for 18 months, ridiculous to give him that guaranteed contract. Well, I don't know. Who else is going to go with? I can understand what you mean, but on his day.
You have to remember, Dak played the system. Dak played out his 2 franchise tags. He played the game so well. I mean, it's rare that players win in the NFL contract game in terms of getting the best possible deal or making the most possible money. You really have to play that franchise tag Russian roulette, if you like. And at the stage when they gave him that deal, I don't think Dallas had any choice. I don't think Jerry had any choice. And I think Dak effectively had played the game well enough to back him into that corner. So I don't think Dallas had a choice or an option. They didn't have anyone else lined up. So they had to give him the big money. And let's face it, he is not I mean, he hasn't won the big game, but he also has proved more than adequate on a multiple number of occasions. So I think you have to have a certain temperament to be the Dallas Cowboy quarterback as well, with everything else that comes with it, and all the razzmatazz and all the Jerry World stuff. And I think he's pretty well attuned to that. So, yeah, what else are you going to do? I believe in him as a quarterback. He didn't have his best day. Say so.
I would jump back 2 years when he got that injury in week 5 against the Giants, and probably a lot of people at that time felt that the chips were back in Jerry's hands because he essentially could mark the contract down and he'd be happy to sign it because he didn't know how well he was going to come back from the injury. 12 months on when he signed that contract in March, just when free agency was about to sign, he still got what he wanted. And I think a lot of Cowboys fans would have felt he wouldn't have taken up so much of the cap in the end, but he did. And he held his own, and his agent held his own. He got the right deal in the end.
Let's see what
There you
happens
are.
in 2
He
years.
literally said it there, yeah.
I mean, very quickly, does everyone agree with what I'm saying here? Like, I mean, they have to win it all this year, or at least get to the game, the big game column, yeah? Or else McCarthy's out. The team, the talent, the way they've played up until now, most of, apart from those 3 games, they have to get to the Super Bowl, yeah? For McCarthy to keep his job.
Well, it's Jerry, so all things are possible, but everyone's talking, we're talking about Dak's contract. What about Zeke's contract? And if you're talking about the law of diminishing returns, Zeke's contract is what you want to really look at, because he is a shadow of the player that he was. So I think it'll be an interesting one. I think it's there can only be one winner, Michael, and Aaron Rodgers can tell you it's very tough to win the big one. So we'll have to see. You get to the dance, all things are possible. So I think it's not time to panic if you are the Cowboys as yet. It was a very disappointing performance, but ultimately they came up short by 3 points. They weren't blown out. It wasn't a disaster. Let's see what happens.
When we interviewed John Machota in the preseason, I think we had him on for the Hall of Fame game, and we asked the question of what's a fair season. He said a deep playoff run, not necessarily to win the Super Bowl, but they need to come out of playoffs with a win for Mike McCarthy, essentially to be secure for next year. You touched on the Packers, Michael. We've seen in the past Packers have really good seasons, and fans get a little bit overconfident when it comes to playoffs, and then they're left feeling the pain of another difficult loss in the playoffs. And recently, and we know who all the Packers fans are, but one of them said that there's absolutely no chance that Mike McCarthy would bring that Cowboys team into Lambeau and beat Aaron Rodgers. And I said, book it, because you know what happens when people put things like that up on social. That would make for a great playoff game. Cowboys in Lambeau against the Pack.
Yeah, but Brian, let's be clear. He wouldn't be Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers would never be, and it'd be someone else's fault. And it was the why. It would be anyone other than Aaron Rodgers who would be the reason why they actually lost that game. I was actually kind of to be invited to join Jeff's show yesterday. And when I was on it, I said that Mike McCarthy, actually more than anyone, has a chance to change his stars and change his history if he took these Cowboys to the promised land. And I know that's a big if, and there's certainly some questionable coaching and questionable game management decisions that he puts from time to time. To be a coach that would lead 2 teams to a Super Bowl just puts his whole career in a different slant and different spike. So maybe if you're talking about winners and losers potentially this playoff season, he's maybe got the person with the biggest thing to win overall, I would say. They're in the dance. Let's see how it goes. That's why we watch the game.
On the Aaron Rodgers talk, thank you, Stephen, for your comment. I appreciate your comment. Thank you very much. I can put this one up. It was a comment about Rodgers. More chance Jerry Jones getting another facelift in the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl. Let's move on. The Rams defeat boys, the Ravens have some running at home. They had the Packers 2 weeks ago, the Rams yesterday, and they have the Steelers next week. Lovely running at home there. They lose 20-19. Von Miller basically wins the game for the Rams at the end, and Sean McVay looked like a man that was getting cabbage and bacon. If anybody was looking at my Twitter last night, very, very happy man. Rams move 12-4. They have a chance to be the second seed in the NFC next week. That's with a win against, I want to say, the 49ers, Colin, next week. They're playing the 49ers next week in the NFC West. Great game. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a strange one because, you know, the Ravens had been beaten up so badly by the Bengals, who exposed their secondary last week. And then Matthew Stafford decided he was going to be a late Santa and just give the ball away in the first half. But then all of a sudden, second half, he's 14 of 14, 162, and he caps the comeback with Odell Beckham and Von Miller. So, Michael, if we're saying the Cowboys need to win it all, there is nobody who's been as all in as the Rams, but they came up and you know, the two guys that they traded for ultimately got them the win. For the Ravens, it's just another such a close game. Huntley played pretty well, given what he was up against in terms of Von Miller, Aaron Donald, who continues to just be monstrous, and Cooper Kupp got the Rams record, but what's he on? Is it 1:30 or thereabouts? He needs about 170 to get 2,000. So might be a big ask, but that I imagine is still the target for him.
I felt the game torn just before half-time. The Ravens had, like you touched on Matthew Stafford and how ineffective he was in the first half. The Ravens were 10-0 up with about a minute to go in the first half, and they went surprisingly very aggressive. And they threw an interception, and the Rams returned. And I know they only took a field goal off that, but a bit of momentum going into half-time. And they're going to change the game a bit, because the Rams then, look, again, they didn't score many points in the second half, but it put them back in the game for a game that they were so out of it. And like I would have thought the Ravens would have looked at this. We're 10-0 up. They can't move the ball on us at the moment. Let's take the 10-0 lead and rely on a defense which, whilst has had a lot of injuries, has been playing really well. And I know you said about Von Miller winning the game, but like in fairness to Matthew Stafford, for a guy who had a difficult day, that last drive was, I wouldn't say it was clinical, but in the right time. And I know Colin last night we kind of questioned whether it was a fourth down. You felt he kind of got a soft spot on that fourth down. I think looking at it again, it was a fair one. And OBJ, for a guy who's got that trade and started off kind of quiet, he's slowly coming to the party and starting to become a really effective receiver for them. That big play on the fourth down, the touchdown to win the game. It's a big win for them. Great opportunity to win division last week for the Ravens. A game we've seen it. I know it didn't go down the way we've seen recently with Ravens games, but like Harbaugh will obviously have your team playing tough and playing close. But it's a season that what could have been for the Ravens.
I was about to shoot the two of you if somebody didn't mention Beckham's hands on that 4th and 5. Like, you know, there are Odell Beckham Jr. has a lot of flaws, but there are very few human beings in this world that can catch the ball that hard thrown, that close to the ground with a DB dragging all over him and still try and stretch out that little bit further because he knew he had to secure that 4th down kind of possession. It was a great play. I mean, who would have said at the start of the season Beckham and Miller would be critical to winning the game for the Rams? But that's obviously the joy of the season and in-season trades and how it all pans out. He was clutch there, but it shouldn't have come to that. I mean, credit has to go to the Ravens. An amazing performance by them, considering they're literally pulling people off the street to put into their secondary. Harbaugh, he's annoying at times. God knows he's a pain in the ass. I think anybody named Harbaugh, his brother's the same, can be irritating, but he's a hell of a coach. And the coaching job he's done this year, yes, it's going to end disappointingly because of, well, you could say vaccination status of players, because of injuries to players, because of all the things that have surrounded them. I think they're paying 94 people at the moment. They've got 18 people on injured reserve. It's a remarkable job him and his staff have done there. Ultimately not close enough. And that was almost the story of this game. I didn't expect them to put up that much of a struggle against the Rams. I thought the Rams would run roughshod over them, especially in the secondary. So full credit to them. The Rams shouldn't have left it so tight, but what an entertaining finish for us as fans to watch and to see them pull it together. And yes, Cooper Kupp, 15 out of 16 games, he's gone over 90 receiving yards now. And Colin, did you say 1,829 yards is where he's set at? Megatron's records in reach, maybe the 2,000-yard barrier is within reach as well. What an amazing season. And he's still number one in yards, number one in touchdowns, and number one in some other category as well. But I can't remember receptions. That's what it is. So maybe the first player since Steve Smith, I think it is, to top all them going forward. Fair play to the Rams. Great for them. Hard luck to the Ravens yet again.
Thank you to Craig O'Shea for your question, saying, hi lads, any idea there's an easy way of watching the Manicast in Ireland? NFL Game Pass, I think, is your best bet the day after. Don't know what time, but it's on week 18 and it's on wildcard week as well, on the wildcard Monday game. Week 18 being the Saturday games. Yes. Okay, thank you very much for your comment there. In terms of Tyler Huntley, yesterday, 20 for 32, 197 yards, 0 passing touchdowns for me. Mark Andrews and Devonta Freeman not getting in the game enough cost him. I'm just glad, Jim. I'm just glad that John Harbaugh didn't go for 2 at the end. I know he didn't have the chance to, but I'm just glad it didn't happen because I don't think I can stomach it again. And yeah, the Ravens 8-8. What could have been? I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
They're not officially out yet, but they need a lot of results.
They need a lot of things to go their way. They almost need as much stuff to go their way as the Steelers do tonight, which is nuts.
I was going to say, isn't one of the results, Brian, that they need the Jags to beat the Colts?
And the Jags to beat the Colts, and
but that starts. Yeah, okay.
And even after that, they needed 2 or 3 more permutations.
So, exactly.
Start with
that's the thing.
This could be a Brian O'Leary, LA Rams, New York Jets moment on Sunday. This Colts Jaguars game. What could have been. I'm excited to see what Tyler Huntley's like in this team over the next couple of years. I think he'll be the starting quarterback in a couple of years. Colin's face. I'm moving on. I actually, boys, you know I'm struggling here.
I'd say his agent, Michael, would say, do you know what? You've done enough to warrant getting yourself an opportunity to be a quarterback in some other team.
Absolutely. A team that have done very well and have a young quarterback is the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Sirianni's first season as head coach. Philly's in the playoffs, albeit the Vikings lost last. Well, I mean, the Vikings didn't show up last night, boys. The Vikings had a bye week 2 weeks ago, and they had a bye week last night as well. My God, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about Philly. Great result for Philly. Interested to see who they get in a couple of weeks. Column in the wildcard.
Yeah, for Philly, it goes back. They limped into Denver back in middle of November. They were 3-6. They put probably the most impressive beatdown the Broncos have had this year, and the Broncos had lost a lot of games, but Philly did a real number on the Broncos, and they've been 6-1 ever since. So you'd have to say that it talked about it like they could be have an even better record had Sirianni realized about running the ball earlier. But for Jalen Hurts, he's done what you can ask. He is a second round QB pick. He's in his second year. He has improved his completion percentage by a full 10%. He's making better decisions. There's still questions, but to get to the playoffs in your second year is pretty solid. The defense was really what came up trumps. Ultimately, they surrendered 16 first half points, but held Washington scoreless in the second half. And for the Washington football team, we also saw the end of their season, but their stadium now is crumbling. So Dan Snyder, we've talked already about the fact that raw sewage was falling on fans earlier in the year. The away teams' benches aren't heated, and now the stadium is literally collapsing, and that could have ended really, really badly. Fortunately, nobody was seriously hurt, but the league have an issue with Dan Snyder as owner. They don't want to address it. I wonder what ultimately it's going to take.
Yeah, fair play to Washington, to be honest. I thought they played really well, and it was there for them at the end to win the game. The Eagles started slowly this week. They got going in the second half. They could continue with the run game. They ran it 34 times. They never got away from it. Boston Scott always seems to do really well in divisional games. But first half they were slow. Last week they only put up 3 points on the Giants in the first half. The week before that, when they played Washington, they only put up 10 in the first half, and the week before that, I think they only put up 6 in the first half. So once they're going to the playoffs, they're going to have to correct that, because you need to play four quarters of football in the playoffs. So if you expect to be in the playoff game in the second half and go and win it, I'd be quite surprised at the moment. If you look at where we are right now, they'd be going to the Rams. That would be a really difficult game for them. But I didn't see it coming. Still not convinced by the quarterback, but they're in the playoffs. That's about it.
Yeah, I want to say, I wish I'd said it at the start of the season, but definitely about 8 weeks ago I called it that look at the schedule coming up, look at how they're playing. The Eagles are going to make the playoffs. And I think Brian O'Leary did throw up on camera when I said that at that particular moment in time. But it was almost destined to be. They finally clicked. Sirianni finally decided that, oh yeah, rushing the ball only 8 times in a game is not the smartest coaching move he's ever made in his life. And they have found the formula, which is limited. And yes, I still don't trust Jalen Hurts to win you a game with his arm, but is working. Their defense has been more effective in the last half of the season. They're running the ball extremely well. We've called out a few times, this is not a team of superstars. You got Dallas Goedert at tight end, who's probably, upper echelon. Most of the team is made up of kind of average to above average at best players. There's no one unit that strikes you. Like the offensive line is okay. The defensive line is, it's good and it can get pressure from time to time. The linebackers are iffy at best. They are greater than the sum of their parts, which I think is a testament to how they've gelled as a team and the coaching that's gone on. I would say more, but I feel like, Brian, I should give you another 30 seconds or so to just say how proud you are of the Eagles to make the playoffs and how delighted you are personally. So I'll throw it back to you, man.
For a division that gets a terrible time over the past 12 months, to see 2 teams going into the playoffs shows how well the division has rebounded, with the exception of the Giants, obviously. But it's a competitive division. Colin joked on Saturday about how much the teams hate each other across the board. It's not just one particular game or another, but you saw that again yesterday. They don't like each other. Washington looked absolutely good at the end not to won that game.
Absolutely. Cast your mind back to the 27th of October and 2-5 Philadelphia Eagles were about to go to Detroit and play the Detroit Lions. Well, it might have been in Philadelphia. Nick Sirianni says, there's got to be a message I have to keep everybody together. I put a picture of a flower up. It's coming through the ground and the roots are growing out. And the roots are continuing to grow out. And the only way they continue to grow is if we water, we all fertilize, we all do our part. He was laughed at when he done that. It went viral. I thought it was hilarious. And look what he's done. They were 2-5, and now they're sitting 9-7. I just agree with what you said, Mark. Not a lot of standout players, but that run game is effective. Boston Scott had 2 touchdowns yesterday. And let's see what can happen in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts needs to get the ball out more passing touchdowns. Not on yesterday. Needs to play more effective passing game. Like Dallas Goedert yesterday led the team with 71 yards. Devonta Smith is not getting enough receptions, and I'm not just saying that because of my fantasy team a couple of weeks ago. He needs to get more. They need to work together more. Let's see what can happen with the Eagles, but fair play to them. They're an example for teams that are struggling in the league that, don't give up after the first couple of months of the season. You can turn it around. Miami were very close to turning it around. They didn't turn it around, but the Eagles have done very well. Fair play to them. And just going on the point there about the NFC East, yeah, it's great to see teams doing well. It should be wake-up calls if teams not doing well. Look at Sunday Night Football with the Raiders, Chargers, Chiefs for my team as well. So, excited to see how the Eagles can go in the playoffs.
And not to look too far ahead, but Eagles fans have to be excited no matter what comes of this situation, even if they do lose the wildcard game, because they've got 3 first-round picks. And the conversation for so much of the season was around, is it Hurts, is it Sirianni, who's holding who back? So now they're in a situation where maybe they can reassess the situation on the quarterback next year because he's brought them to the playoffs. And they've got 3 first-round picks. The problem with those first-round picks, they seem to be dropping down the list. Brendan Rodgers beat Liverpool last week, Fred. Don't forget that.
Good character. Good character, Brian. Good character.
But he had his white teeth smiling last week when they beat Liverpool, so I think we were all smiling that night.
Yeah, and
Yes.
Michael, just one last thing before we move off the Eagles game. I mentioned this a little while ago, but the NFL, especially when it's so designed towards parity, when you think of everything about it, free agency, the salary cap, the draft, it's all designed to equalize everything. So teams have to take advantage of market inefficiencies. The greatest market inefficiency that exists in the NFL today, number one, is a rookie quarterback on a rookie quarterback contract. That is the greatest thing you can use for team building. The second biggest market inefficiency is the cost of running backs. The cost of running backs compared to any other position, the cost of them, other than Zeke Elliott on his second contract, for example, the cost of effectively committing to that is far lower than anything else. And there are a few teams in the NFL that have overcommitted to loading up on quality offensive line, loading up on depth in relation to the offensive line, loading up on depth and depth options at running back to continue to pound the ball. And their run pass differential is so more skewed than every other team in the league. Three of those teams, and the top three in this, are the Eagles, the Colts, and the Titans. And every one of the three of those teams are making the playoffs. There, sometimes statistics lie. I think that there is a pattern there to be seen. So will we see a further shift back in terms of the modern age of the NFL to more old school tactics? It certainly paid off this season for those teams.
One thing that surprised me last night was the lack of games in the late window. Look at next week. There are only 2 games in the 9:25 window. And granted, yes, it's the NFC West, but there's not a lot going on there. And last night, I think that really put it down was this game because Jesus, boys, come on. Okay, first off, well done, Seattle, 51-29. Fair play to Pete Carroll at the very end. I'm sure Colin, you love that sporting move at the end where they didn't go for the score at the end. Very, very good. Really enjoying the international experience for Reds when we get to watch the end of the game. We're going to miss the famous sign-off next week from Scott Hansen, but sure, look, it is what it is. Are we going to see Russell Wilson in Seattle next year, Colin? Will we see Pete Carroll in Seattle next year? And if not, look, we're not going to talk about this game. If not, what's going to happen?
But Michael, anytime a team scores 50 points, you have to talk about it. It does not happen.
Tim Boyle.
Doesn't matter.
He's not playing defense though.
So yeah, 50. The last time that Seattle scored 50 points was 2012, which was Russell Wilson's rookie year, and he actually had 2. Now there's another QB who's done that this year. So I'm sure Mark would be pretty happy if he had a similar sort of career to Russell Wilson. I think that we will see on Russell Wilson, but I think the feeling in Seattle, you could see it last night, was this was his last home game. They wanted to put a performance, and they absolutely did. They just beat up on a poor Lions team that didn't. I mean, Tim Boyle, it wasn't competitive, but for Seattle to have Penny coming in and performing well, and for Russell Wilson to throw 4 touchdown passes, DK Metcalf to have 3, they will be very happy. It's kind of, if it is the send off that I think they seem to expect. But as Mark says, teams hold all the aces when it comes to QBs and whether they move or not.
I felt the Lions rallied very well in the second half. The score is a bit of a mad score, in fairness, for NFL games, but they were down such a high score at halftime. We touched on Campbell during the season where we thought he was a bit out of his depth, but I think the last 5 to 6 weeks has proven that whilst they're losing games, I think they're very much behind him in terms of the front office and the players that are there. Whether those players will still be there next year is a different thing. You probably have to reevaluate that because they're obviously not good enough, but he certainly, I believe, is the right man to bring them forward for now anyway.
I'm just happy because I bet the over. I also think Rashad.
Had that at halftime, did you?
Yeah, geez, mine was, I think it was near as damn it was up at halftime. Rashad Penny had a great game. He's made a bit of a noise about wanting more time to prove that he belongs in the league, to prove that he's deserving of more game time. 25 carries for 170 yards will get you there pretty quickly. And that obviously opens up all kinds of possibilities in what has been a sputtering Seattle offense this season. I mean, they beat the Lions. Don't get too excited about it, guys. But, they beat the Lions, Michael. It's not the most exciting thing they've ever done. But a great way to sign off the home finale Obviously, on the broadcast, there was a lot of talk about, is it Pete Carroll's last game? Is it Russell Wilson's last game? We will come back to it. 51 points, never to be sniffed at. Yeah, Mac only got 50 this week, so he got pipped. Colin, you're right, but there we go.
There was a guy in the States that had vested interest in the game. I think he won 200K off Penny having, I'm not sure if it was the top three rushing performance throughout the league, and he had bet it and known at a massive price that he would score 2 touchdowns and be one of the most effective running backs for the day, and won 200 grand off his bet. So it can be done, Connor.
The sheer cheek of Cockrell coming onto this show and saying Mac Jones had 50. He had 3 passing touchdowns to hand the ball off the rest of them. All right. Fair. Great result for the Patriots. Great result.
The game, Michael.
I watched
the game.
I didn't enjoy it. I watched the game.
Points.
Yes, but you said Mac did. So let's just. You said Mac had 50 points. Just.
Michael.
I'm just grammatically suggesting
Russell
that
Wilson
maybe
played a very good game.
Anyway, let's get back to Russell Wilson. I don't think he's going to go anywhere, because if he looks at Denver, if he looks at New York, if he looks at Chicago, he's going to think, the hell would I want to go there for? Seriously. And Aaron Rodgers is the same. So where is he going to go?
Because I don't think it's all about Russell Wilson, to be honest, Michael. There's other factors that come into play. It's been well known for quite some time. His wife does no longer wish to remain in the Seattle area. She wants to move to somewhere a little bit more, we'll call it snazzy. Well, potentially New York. I'm not saying that because of the Giants situation. I don't think that he'll go to the Giants. Why wouldn't he want to go to the Saints? Sean Payton's one game off getting that team into the playoffs, which I actually believe will happen, because I don't think the 49ers will win in the Rams. They get to the playoffs. Who's to say he should be coach of the year with what he's done with that team? Why wouldn't he want to go play for that Saints team?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
And in terms of like bargaining position, and Colin, you quoted my line about like the teams have all the power, and they do. But Russell Wilson, I believe, does have a no trade clause. So he actually, I believe so, or at least he can dictate a little bit more than other quarterbacks can. So it's not all in the team's power if they decide, okay, we are going to ship him off. We are going to try and get some return for him. Like, Wilson can influence things in relation to it. But they don't have to let him go. So there's got to be a meeting in the mind somewhere along the line, and how much they want to do it. Bear in mind as well, the ownership situation there is, no, it's not quite as bad as Denver. Don't get me wrong, guys. But there's lingering rumors after Paul Allen's sad demise, like, are the family going to move on from the franchise? Are they going to sell it on, etc.? So that does contribute to some of the swirling considerations in the area.
Congrats to Seahawks on their win. Interested to see what happens over the course of the offseason. Okay. We talked about the Raiders. We'll talk about the Chargers quickly enough. They're playing each other on Sunday night in Week 18 for a chance to go to the playoffs in Vegas on NBC or Sky Sports or Peacock. Right. Big win for the Chargers, 34-13. Colin.
The Chargers righted the wrongs of a few weeks ago. Justin Herbert had some lovely throws, and Drew Lock threw a garbage time touchdown, and that was about it. I mean, the much vaunted Vic Fangio defense couldn't stop the Chargers. The Broncos are out of contention. The Chargers have a big game against the Raiders for the AFC West divisional matchup. It'll be an interesting one. Herbert is, fantastic. Still a great QB despite not playing preseason games. Doesn't need to, and it'll just be interesting to see, I suppose, how the Raiders approach that defensively as well. But the Chargers did just what they needed to do yesterday.
I picked the Chargers. I felt it'd be a lot closer than it was, mainly because I felt the Broncos players would be up for the task in terms of being competitive. It was clear yesterday that a lot of the players had zoned out on defense as well, and that's a shame because the defense has played reasonably well this season and probably doesn't get the credit it deserves. But Fangio's coming out today, and like you guys will probably know the quotes better than I do, but I read some of them this evening, and he's saying all the usual nonsense. Let's be fair, we're a step away from being a really good team, and I didn't think the way that the season ended up would be reflective of our performance earlier in the season, like all the kind of stuff. I think the reality is now he should go, and they should readdress the situation with a new head coach, and there's plenty of good ones out there that can do a better job than him. to see what we saw yesterday with no competitive edge from any of the players, and the quarterback situation needs to get resolved in the long term. I thought Drew Lock was a good quarterback coming out, and I know, Colin, you've obviously been very disappointed in his performance, but yesterday I thought was horrific, to be honest. The play which they did trying to fake the round, the one where they tried to use the kind of the Philly special type scenario play where
And then he fell on his arse.
Yeah, and he fell. That kind of summed up what we saw from him yesterday, and I kind of said it a few weeks ago when they played the Bengals. That play kind of summed up the season where Locke fumbles and then they recover again. It was just ups and downs of a season that's just fallen away very badly. For the Chargers, sorry, Mark, for the Chargers, they couldn't have got an easier game in terms of looking forward to a big game next week. The Raiders were in a game yesterday. That could probably stand to the Raiders better than Chargers having a non-existing game to a certain extent.
Michael, Colin, I do love you both. I do, honestly. But I said on Saturday night this was going to be a blowout. I wasn't joking. It was a blowout. It went the way I thought it would. One team turned up, the other team didn't. When you look at the entire game and say that 14 seconds left to go in the first half, and the Broncos get the ball back, Drew Lock completes 2 passes in a row, which probably is a minor miracle in itself, for 30-odd yards. And then Brandon McManus kicks a 61-yard field goal, that being the entire highlight of probably the entire game for Broncos fans and the team, is kind of summing it up pretty easily in many respects. They were 17-0 down. Oh, well done. They brought it back 17-3. Maybe you get a bit of momentum into the second half. No, you probably punted away pretty sharply thereafter. The Chargers have at times flattered to deceive. They've at times dropped the ball at the wrong time of the game, and obviously have a couple of inexcusable losses. But they're still fighting and kicking. They're in prime position for a great AFC West showdown to have 2 teams from that division going into the playoffs. And, Justin Herbert still throws the prettiest deep ball in the NFL, and the Broncos let them play. And there was only going to be one result then.
Absolutely. I'm not going to focus on the Broncos that much. We hopefully have somebody come on and talk about them on our show. You can see at the bottom, Friday night. Let's see if we get somebody come on and talk about them. We talk about Vic Fangio, what's going to happen there next week. I think he's going to stay as it stands. Chargers, the game against the Texans, the game against the Broncos, and the 2 games against the Chiefs. The Chargers could be 13-3. But then again, if your ma was your dad, et cetera, et cetera. It is what it is. Yeah, it was a blowout. I mean, it was men versus boys. Great result for the Chargers, and I am really looking forward to that Sunday Night Football game, because that's 2 teams that want to win. And can we just very quickly? I haven't got a graphic. Staley looks like Rory McIlroy's brother. Just keep that in your head. Go back, look at it later on. Look at a proper photo. We'll put a graphic up tomorrow. But that's leadership there, and teams going in the right direction. And congratulations to the Chargers. They more than deserve the win. Okay. We are going to talk about let's talk very quickly about Antonio Brown, and try and get this done, and we'll go AOB, and then we'll get out of here before we talk about Big Benjamin.
Can I talk about the game for a second?
Yeah, I was going to do right. Yeah, go on ahead.
Oh, sorry, Colin, do you want to go?
No, go for it. Go for it.
I think Mark called it out on our own internal WhatsApp group radio, how well the Jets played yesterday. But the Jets still found ways to do Jets things. That 4th and 2 essentially was a 4th and 2 play to win the game. They let the clock run down to 2:17. They made sure all the books used all the timeouts. They did everything you'd expect. They then called their own timeout because they realized the significance of the 4th and 2 play. Salah was in the middle of the conversation. They went to the sideline. They had a 3-man conversation around the play. The play that was called, the play that was ran, was not the play that was agreed. The quarterback came out after the game and said the play was miscommunicated into my ear. He went with a sneak on a 4th and 2. Like, quarterback sneaks are designed for half a yard, an inch, maybe a yard, not a 4th and long 2. It was supposed to be an end around to what's the guy, I can't call his name, Barres, is it, the guy that scored 2 touchdowns from, really effective receiver. That was the play that was called. And after the game, Salah came and go, I don't know what happened, because what was ran was not what we agreed. And the quarterback then said it was not communicated to me properly. So it was a blown play. Having played so well for literally 59 minutes of the game, 58, whatever was left in the clock, to do that was just Jets doing Jets things. Fairness to Brady, came back 18 points in the 4th quarter. but it was one that the Jets really deserved. I felt the Jets deserved to win that game.
Braxton Berrios is who he should have
There
gone
you go.
to, Brian. But equally, it wasn't. Salah called out Mike LaFleur heavily. Like,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, I know. Yeah, sorry.
He was
He
like,
didn't take
that
any
was the
blame in the
offensive coordinator's
situation.
fault, not Zach Wilson's fault. It's like, Jesus Christ.
But he was in the middle of that conversation. So how is he blaming the offensive coordinator? Anyway, I'm not a Jets fan. I have my own problems, but I just felt for the Jets yesterday, they played really well and deserved to win. They didn't get that win.
But that's the issue. Good teams find ways to win.
Yeah.
Bad teams find ways to lose. And that is the Jets' issue. And it's been yet another year with a new head coach and a new QB. I mean, they really need to take a step forward next year. Hopefully they do. Nobody wants to see a franchise have a playoff drought that lasts longer than a decade. That's just horrible for any set of fans. For the Bucks, they, that Faustian pact that Brady made continues, because even when his hand-picked wide receiver who he wanted, he brought in, who Bruce Arians said if he made one mistake, he was gone, who has had a litany of messes of his own making, yet who last week said it was the media who created all the drama. The Bucks haven't cut him today. They're, as Andrew Brandt famously says, there are lawyers. They are probably worried about another playoff team picking him up, because I think the NFL is the NFL, and guys like Antonio Brown will continue to get chances because head coaches, will always, when somebody has talent, they will roll the dice. So he has not been, despite Bruce Arians saying he's no longer a Buck. He remains a Tampa Bay Buccaneer at this moment in time.
He will never play a snap for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That may be the case, but he remains a Tampa Bay Buccaneer despite the vaccination card, despite everything else.
But I mean, look, there's strategy involved in it as well. So it means strategically not allowing your competitors to pick him up makes a degree of sense. But look, I almost don't want to talk about Antonio Brown. I mean, it's such a look at me bit of kind of tactics in relation to it. I know Brady came out and said, look, maybe you have to have compassion for different things that are going on. And we don't know Antonio Brown's health situation, his mental health situation in relation to it. And if it's truly that he's suffering from mental health issues, which contribute to this kind of self-destructive behavior, then, in many respects, Josh Gordon struggles in the NFL. Just hope he gets all the help he needs to have. If he's just an arsehole and being a diva, then, good riddance and please go away. But I think there's something more deep-seated. Somebody doesn't blow out of now 4 different franchises in the way he has, without something greater at the heart of the purposes. I mean, keeping things on the field in relation to it, yes, if you needed a weekly reminder, Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. That throw to seal the deal reminded me of the throw a few years ago when he was with the Patriots against the Texans to Brandon Cooks in the opposite corner. And when he needs to, he can still make the throw. That is fundamentally, and I love you Packers fans as well, but that's the difference by Tom Brady is Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. Tom Brady makes the throws when he has to, when he actually needs to win games. He doesn't just make them in the regular season and when it suits him. And he actually leads the team through adversity. He doesn't blame the rest of his team when things go wrong. That's just the reality of it. But look, the Bucs are not a world-beating team at the moment. They shouldn't have let the Jets stay that close in many respects. But the Jets made a great performance until, as Brian says, the important part of the game when it all could have, should have, might have gone very, very differently for them in relation to it. So we'll go on. Everyone will go on without Antonio Brown and see how it all pans out in the next few weeks.
And the end, like the last sort of series with Brady, I think it might have been Scott Hansen or was the commentator saying, I don't know how he's going to get the ball down there, and he did. But I'm not going to talk about Antonio Brown and what's happened with a vaccination card or anything like that there. And if there is mental health problems, that's fair enough. There's obviously a situation there that's going on. I was just stunned that it happened. I've never in my life seen anything like that ever in sports. and it was just incredible. And from looking at the various TikTok videos to the Instagram lives to the Barstool Sports, where the taxi man was, or the guy that picked him up and everything, you could suggest it was planned. You could suggest that it was planned from the start of the game, or something's happened, or you could look at other various factors, of course, that people have talked about: mental health, the fact that there's a couple of snaps left for, or not a couple of snaps, a couple of receptions or a touchdown or whatever for a bonus, but then the rumor is going from McAfee that he took himself out of the game. So look, time will come out. But hearing what Arians and Brady have said now, I'm not going to judge anything. I just thought the whole situation was nuts, and it was just mad crack altogether. The Bucks got over the line. Ooh, I can't wait to see what's going to happen over the next few weeks with this team. I wouldn't be surprised if he played for the Bucks again.
I'm going to side with Brown on this situation, and not obviously the vaccination card, not his behaviour when he went off the field. And I don't think any of the social stuff was really good for him anyway, because obviously it's clear the mental health situation. But he didn't practice last week at all, and by all accounts, leading up to the game, he was making it very clear to the guys, the team, the doctors, he didn't feel right to play yesterday, and he obviously was put in a position where the team are struggling offensively. I mean, in terms of players available, that he was put in a position to get out there and play. Two or three times, they're saying, the Tampa reports today are saying 2 or 3 times he came up to the coordinator and to BA and said, I don't feel right in the game. And BA, by all accounts, and this is coming out in Tampa reports today, said, get back in there or you're fired. Now, we've seen in the past that most coaches, where a player says, I don't feel comfortable, they won't play them. There's a trust element between the coach and the player. And he says, if you don't feel right, okay, I'll go with your instinct. They're obviously using there because, let's be fair, it's not Bruce Arians' guy, it's Brady who brought him in and backed him. And Brady's not backing him now, obviously, because he's kind of sitting on the fence saying, no, there's other things going on there, which is fair enough. He has to kind of pull back a little from the situation. But if that is the case, where he was told, get back in there or you're gone, I think he's made the right decision. He didn't feel right. He didn't practice all week. But the problem is he brings so much drama into the situation. You don't know when he's been upfront anymore or whether he's just been the diva, as Marcus suggested. But in that instance, I actually sided with him. I felt he didn't do the right thing in terms of how he behaved. But if he was told to leave, he should leave. He didn't leave in the right way, though.
Okay. There's a number of things that we could talk about. I think the one thing I will say about this game, a friend of the show, Carmen Vitali, made my day today when she tweeted this. If it would ever load this year. Is it still a New York state of mind if I'm in the state of New Jersey? She's very cold when it comes to that sort of stuff, so fair play. Right, anyway, let's get ahead of ourselves here. Any other business? I'm going to very quickly talk about the Green Bay Packers. I don't know if anybody else has dibs that. Yeah, unreal. They are a banker on Sunday Night Football for the handicap. They're unreal. But something tells me about this team. I don't know what it is. They've got all these weapons on the offense side of the ball. I don't think it'd be Dallas, but if they come up against a team in, for example, the NFC Championship, I think they're not going to get over the line. And I just don't know what it is. And they're right. There's no excuses this year. They can't come in here anymore and say this, yada, yada, yada. And all this rubbish this weekend of Aaron Rodgers is always considering last dance. No, he's not. Oh, jeez. And it's boring me now. And they're so good. Devontae Adams is amazing what he's done this season. But it's put up or shut up time. Because this is it. Aaron Rodgers has won one ring. Time to go win another, because they should sail through the NFC. Going by, if you were watching NBC last night, they should sail through it.
Just one very quick point on that game, Michael, because I know we're going to kind of wrap up other games, but I did think, even though the Vikings put out, a high school quarterback at the quarterback position, it was very good of them, in honor of John Madden, to try at least a recreation of the Immaculate Reception in the middle of the game with the rebounded catch by their center in relation to it. It wasn't quite Franco Harris picking it off the feet to seal the AFC Championship game, but it was just notable with the weekend that was in it for me.
Three quick points for me. Matt LaFleur now has the best start, 3-year start to any coach in the league's 102-year history. .813, 39-9. What a start for him. Robert Quinn breaking the Bears record, a team loaded with defensive Hall of Fame greats. So that nice franchise record there to have, and an opportunity to break his own personal record. And I have never seen anything as cold as Mike Zimmer when discussing Kellen Mond and whether he wanted to bring him in next week. Zimmer clearly knows that his time in Minnesota is up when you basically say that the general manager is a big Egypt for picking a QB who he gets to watch every day and he clearly thinks is hopeless. And given what you witnessed during the game, if he thinks that Kellen Mond wouldn't be an improvement on that, that is quite telling.
For anyone who hasn't seen that Mike Zimmer 20-second clip, they should stick it into Twitter or social or YouTube. It's funny, but Columns on hit the nail on the head. The GM is obviously reflective of that situation. To another head coach that potentially could be coming to the end of the line, and that's the Giants and Joe Judge. So the game was the toilet bowl that I expected. But it's more about the aftermath now in the press conferences, because the guy just seems to be shoveling a lot of what at the moment. So he went on for 10 minutes and 21 seconds yesterday off one question, in which he threw Pat Shermer under the bus. He threw Ben McAdoo under the bus. And we were discussing Dan Reeves the weekend, and Dan Reeves had two great points, two great quotes in his career. I remember when he was at the Giants. One was, when you start blaming everybody else, you've got real problems. And the other one was, if you point two fingers, three fingers point back at you, because you're the third person who's at fault. For me, he actually isn't comfortable now. I thought last week he had his job secure on the back of that article. If his job is secure, why would you come out with the mumbo jumbo that he's coming out with? Like, literally everybody got thrown under the bus yesterday. Players are ringing him, saying they wish they were still with the Giants, despite getting significant other cash elsewhere. There's 19 players on other teams that were with the Giants last year. Only 2 of them are earning big money. That's Seidler, who got released, and Dalvin Thomas, and I doubt they're ringing him. And there's another 8 on practice squad teams. So he's completely talking garbage there. And he's saying about players not rocking up and remaining committed and all this. It's just absolutely, it's just a disaster. And the sooner they realise he has to go, the better. And I feel for him, because I thought last year he was the right guy. Young coach, 38. The reality is he'll end up somewhere else, back special teams. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to the Patriots, because we've seen it. They brought back Matt Patricia. Bill Belichick doesn't say, you're gone, you're finished, we're here for there's always an open door there. And if he feels he's the right man to bring back, he'll bring him back. So certainly won't be back as the head coach anytime soon, unless the Giants don't make the right decision next week and see fit for him to return next year, which I think at this stage is a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, the Patriots have had 4 block kicks on special teams, and special teams has not been performing the way it normally would under Belichick's arena. So welcome him back on a heartbeat as special teams coach, to be honest with you. I'm just going to, in terms of wrap up, Pats, Jags, if you hadn't noticed, guys, the Pats did seal the playoff place. It was a rough year. I'll just be honest, being out of the playoffs for a whole year there with that really disappointing 7-9 season last year. I mean, it's been tough. Look, the Pats are where I thought they would be. They got in as a wild card. They could give a couple of people a scare, but I don't really believe they're going to go on and win Lombardi this season. But I look forward to enjoying the fun and games, the tension, the heartbreak that will inevitably ensue. Mac Jones looked fantastic, Michael, yesterday. Again, being one of only 4 rookie quarterbacks to win over the 10 starts in a season and make the playoffs tends to do that for you. But actually, one of the underrated stories is N'Keal Harry, the Pats' former first-round pick, was a healthy scratch. And Kristen Wilkinson, who they promoted from the practice squad, promptly came in, caught 2 touchdowns, should have caught a third on a deep bomb as well. And, talking about people's days being numbered, there's a sign for you in relation to it. At the end of the day, it was the Jags. Not going to get too excited, but the Miami loss sealed the Pats' playoff spurt. So I'm a happy camper this week, to be sure.
We have got a good game coming up tonight. I am going to say this when I put this on the screen, because we need to get this done and get out. But Mark's being very conservative there. The New England Patriots can still win the division next week. So Come on
They
now,
won't.
Mark. Come on. They're
They-
playing the
they
Jets
won't.
next week. The Bills are playing the Jets, who will
The
be
Bills,
up for that like nothing
that's
else.
just answered the point, Michael. I mean, look, the Bills did their best. I mean, losing at halftime to the Falcons to give me hope. But eventually the Falcons, remember they were the Falcons. They intercepted Josh Allen 3 times, though. And the Bills messed up a couple of deep drives in the red zone there. So could have been close. But they're playing the Jets. The Bills have the division. I'm pretty comfortable about that, to be honest.
It looks right now like that it could be a rerun. Obviously, depending on next weekend's result. But right now, the Bills play the Patriots again in the wildcard game in Buffalo.
Yeah. Technically, Michael, the Patriots actually still have an outside chance of the #1 seed. But that would be almost as improbable as the Ravens getting their permutations to make the wild card. So
Probably cheering for the Broncos
not
then
gonna
on the Saturday. Okay, right. Let's look ahead to tonight's game. It's probably going to be Ben Roethlisberger's last game. Well, it will be in Pittsburgh. Looking forward to it tonight, playing the Cleveland Browns. 7-1 Steelers, 7-8 Browns. This game is in Pittsburgh. Colin, for me, like I'll give my pick later on, but if I'm Ben Roethlisberger, there's no better way to go out than in front of your home fans tonight and not playing next week. Would you agree with that?
Well, certainly the last home game at Heinz Field, given his history with the franchise, given the franchise's storied history, and given what you saw the Seahawks do for potentially Russell Wilson's last home game, I imagine you're going to see the Steelers pull out all the stops for Big Ben's last home game. Almost certainly to be the case. The Browns, it's got to be a huge disappointment for them. They know they're not playoff bound. I think it's going to be difficult for them to pick themselves up off the floor after that. And also, we've talked about Antonio Brown a little bit. How good a coach was Mike Tomlin that he managed to keep most of that under wraps for the best part of a decade. So I think that the Steelers are going to put on a performance for Big Ben's last hurrah at home, and I think they are going to overcome a Browns team who don't have anything left to play for, and the Steelers go above 500.
The reason why I think he'll be playing next week is because they're playing the Ravens. And let's be fair, over the last 15 to 20 years in his career, there's been not many rivalries that have come close. They played each other in championship games, they played each other in the playoffs, and they've obviously some great games that come down to the wire. And we even saw it there a few weeks ago where he won on that 2-point conversion that wasn't taken up by the Ravens. So I think he'll definitely be playing next week. I'm going to side with the Browns in this game. I don't think the Browns will get caught up in the hype around Big Ben, because I think, like, once you see the hype around Big Ben, he hasn't played consistently over the season. Their offense has been sporadic, and the Browns, I think there's a bigger conversation to be had in this game, and that's around Baker Mayfield and whether the Browns are going to pay them. And I know he played well last week, but ultimately he costed the game to a certain extent with the interceptions that the Packers took on him, and that kind of, that game was there for the winning, and it didn't materialize. So for me, I think the Browns, they're not going to make the playoffs. There's bigger things there to play for them, and in particular around Baker Mayfield. I think he'll do his best to have a good game, and I think it'll be a close game, but the Browns will just win.
The Browns have been like a defective airbed this season. They always have this habit of letting you down. Sometimes in a big explosion, sometimes just in a slow and depressing deflation as the season has gone on. Start of the season, they looked like the class act of the AFC North. They looked like they were about to re-establish a degree of dominance. And again, when you look, not just, Baker Mayfield is the lightning rod, of course, for this whole team, but you look at the talent they've had on the defensive side. Yes, they've had some injuries when it comes to their running game, but just the running backs, the talent, the skill positions they've got, tight end and wide receiver, they have flattered to deceive, to say the least. They have been probably the Vikings would be a bigger disappointment, but the Browns are right down there with them in terms of return on the talent they've actually got available on the side. And all the feel good from last season dissipated pretty quickly. It started pretty well. They should have won the opening game of the season against the Chiefs, but they somehow managed to throw that away. And from then on, it's been stops and starts the whole way. To Brian's point, the Steelers' entire offense is stops and starts. They have some talented players there. It would help if they remembered that the clock also still runs in the NFL and not to keep celebrating at times. and actually took some coaching from time to time. But to me, I've got too much respect actually for Mike Tomlin. I have too much respect for Ben and what he's achieved. And yes, the emotions will be running high, and I think they will be riding on that crest of the wave. And I've basically too much respect for the Steelers defense, which will probably by the rocking atmosphere. And they're the real reason why I've got them to win this game tonight. Steelers for me.
This segment is presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange, proud sponsor of the Irish NFL show. The over and under tonight is 43.0. The handicap is the Steelers minus 2.5. And the Steelers are the current favourites with the bookmakers to win. You can check out matchbook.com, both on the website and on the app. You can bet in euros and in punts. Use code Irish NFL Show, £20, €20. Welcome offer. I think tonight Ben Roethlisberger is going to leave everything he has in the field. I think he's going to go out he's going to have the adrenaline of a 21-year-old man, and he's going to go mad. Now, I'm not going to say that he's going to play incredibly well, but he'll leave everything on the field. The Cleveland's defense has given up an average of 27 points a game on the road, which is nearly 10 points more than the 17.5 points per game they're allowing at home. Yes, they've got the run game. Yes, Baker Mayfield might turn up. Who knows? And yes, Miles is there on the D, but I just think the Steelers are going to win tonight. I've just got a feeling that Big Ben's going to win it. And it's the end of an era in Pittsburgh, and it's the end of an era for the Steelers team, which is a very intriguing prospect for any quarterback to go to next season if they were to pick one up. Or maybe they might use their backup instead. Mark, I know you wanted to very quickly mention a couple of teams that we haven't while we look ahead to Week 18.
Yeah, well, I mean, only a couple of playoff spots are up for grabs still in the league, albeit that the seeding isn't clear. The only seed that's confirmed is the Packers will be the number one seed in the NFC. But a couple of teams we didn't talk about was the 49ers and the Saints beating the Panthers in a pretty woeful game, must be said. The 49ers taking care of business against the Texans. Both of them are in the running still for the wild card in the NFC, so both their games on the Sunday slot will be interesting to watch. Both still have live hopes. Frankly, at different points of the season, that has seemed a wilder and wilder prospect for them both to still be in the running. So again, in terms of people deserving credit, the coaching job by Sean Payton with the Saints, and was he on now 4 starting quarterbacks, or is he up to 5 starting quarterbacks at various times? And indeed, Kyle Shanahan might have thrown away a couple of Super Bowls, but even in the depths, he's kept that 49ers team on track. They've got Elijah Mitchell back. They threw away the game against the Titans a while ago, but a couple of weeks ago, but they're still there and thereabouts. And they are the fourth team. When I talk about the teams that are committed to the run-first differential, the fourth team in that category, who again have a great chance of making the playoffs and potentially, obviously, securing that. I think they're in line for the 6th seed if they win out over the Eagles.
Tonight's game should be obviously divisional rivalry, plenty to enjoy, but tonight's game also highlights the Rooney family, just what incredible owners they have been, and guardians of the game. In stark contrast, just reports coming through, Dan Snyder, nobody apparently asked any of the fans whether they needed any medical attention. As Andrew Brandt says, there will be lawyers.
I thought you were going to say there will be blood, but there might have already been blood, and that's why there will be lawyers afterwards. In terms of wrap-up points as well, just in case anybody missed it, and I'm sure you love me reeling off Pat's trivia generally, Michael, but Bill Belichick's now coached in over 800 games during his whole career, going back originally to the Lions even as a special teams assistant back in 75. But over 800 games is something else. And Tom Brady, if you missed it, just because I know you care about him so deeply, regular and postseason combined, he's now over 700 touchdowns. And I know you like to celebrate all these milestones with me, Michael, so that's why I feel the need to share these special, special moments with you every time.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who watched the show tonight. There's been so many comments, and I'll be completely honest, these boys know about it. I've been a wee bit under the weather today, and it's not for watching that game late last night, so if your comment didn't go on the screen, please don't be offended, but really appreciate all these folks that have watched, interacted, commented under it. You can see there's 2 games Saturday night. We'll have a show on Friday at 10 o'clock with a couple of beat writers, a few opinions ahead of 2 interesting games. Chiefs trying to get Number 1 seed in the AFC, and I don't know what that Cowboy. I mean, I'll try and build up the Cowboys Eagles game then as well. We'll get our picks in, and then we got a Week 18 show on Sunday at 10 o'clock. We hope, depending upon COVID, etc., that might be in person. We'll see what happens. There is the slate for one final week of a full schedule in the NFL this season. Some interesting games copping it off in the Chargers at the Raiders. They have all been confirmed, and we will see you lads, I guess, on
Friday.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Enjoy the game.
Bye. Bye.